Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is the third webinar in the Conversations with Colleagues series, which is being hosted by the TRB Bicycle and Pedestrian Data Subcommittee. These webinars take place every fourth Tuesday of every other month and are focused around challenges in bicycle and pedestrian traffic monitoring. Today's topic is how to input bicycle and pedestrian data into FHWA's travel monitoring analysis system, TMAS. Our next conversation with colleagues will be in April on the topic of automated video image processing and accuracy. So stay tuned for details on that. My name is Krista Nordback, and I'm a researcher at University of North Carolina Highway Safety Research Center. I'll be moderating the conversation today. If I can advance the slides. Okay, there we go. And we have two really exciting panelists joining us today, Stephen Jesberger of the Federal Highway Administration and Scott Brady of the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, DVRPC. Before we launch into our exciting discussion of how to upload bicycle and pedestrian count data to Federal Highway Administration's national database, just as in previous conversation webinars, the aim of this series is to allow for a more conversational tone. The hope is that as the discussion progresses, questions can be raised not only from the speakers, but to one another. If you have a question, you can either type it into the question pod or you can raise your hand on the GoToMeeting interface and we can unmute your microphone so you can speak. So let's go ahead and test that feature and have everyone raise their hand. Okay. Oh, good. I see some people doing it. Great. Thank you, everyone. And Nathan Hicks with CDM Smith will be monitoring the question pod for your questions and comments as they come in. Thank you very much, Nathan. And if you have any audio issues or other technical problems, please be sure to type that into the chat pod, and Mai Le from TRB, who is assisting us with technical issues, will help you with that. Following the webinar, we'll be providing a summary which will include any links or references that are made throughout the webinar, as well as a recording. So look forward to that. Today we will be focusing on the how to input bicycle and pedestrian data, FHWA's travel monitoring analysis system, TMAS. So how do we add data to it? We want to share our experiences about using the Traffic Monitoring Guide TMG format and learn more about how to share data both with FHWA and with the larger community of practitioners and how to make that sharing the best possible. So 2018 is a pivotal year in bike ped travel monitoring because TMAS will be accepting bicycle and pedestrian count data, as Stephen's going to tell us about, and also because our fearless leader of the Bike Ped Data Subcommittee, Scott Brady, is retiring and moving to Hawaii. So today is one of our last chances to pick his brain and learn more about what he's learned for all these years. So let me just give a little background on our two speakers. Stephen Jesberger with Federal Highway has been a staff member for 12 years. He's a graduate of Ohio State University. He's been the owner of TMAS for over a decade. He has been a trainer for the Traffic Monitoring Guide, and he loves anything related to travel monitoring, so we can ask him all sorts of questions today. Scott Brady has 12 years of experience in traffic monitoring and plus 16 in traffic simulation. He manages DVRPC's Office of Travel Monitoring there in Philadelphia. They have over 5,000 traffic counts per year. That's both motor vehicle and bike ped. And I want to congratulate them for being the first in the country to really integrate their permanent and cyclical short duration bicycle counting program in order to estimate annual average daily bicycle traffic at short duration sites. If anyone knows others who are doing that, great, please tell me. But I believe they are the first in the country to really have a systemic program. And they are also the winner of the FHWA PEN, official PEN, because they are the first to submit bicycle count data to TMAS. So congratulations to DVRPC. Scott, as well as chairing our subcommittee, he's also on 2 other TRB committees and a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. So we're so glad to have him here today. Now let's go to a poll question. What type of agency do you represent? Great. Nathan, do you want to give us the results when you're ready?
Sure, yes. We still have a few more people voting. Give it a few more seconds here. Okay, I think that's just about everyone. I'll close the poll and share it with everyone. So as we can see here, a lot of people from state DOTs and NPOs, as well as in the private consulting world, or a nonprofit or other type of agency, and a few from local government and universities as well.
Great, good to know. Okay, and then can you all see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll have Stephen Jesberger is first up. He's going to give us an introduction to TMAS and then a demonstration on how to use it. So I will turn it over to Stephen. Stephen, are you there? Go ahead,
there
Stephen.
We go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I got muted by the host. All right, so yeah, thanks, Krista, and thanks to TRB. We're excited to be able to demonstrate the fundamentals of what's in TMAS 2.8, which is the next version coming out, and what's going to be happening with TMAS in the not so distant future. We're expecting this version to be up and running at the end of April at the latest, and we're doing final beta testing on it now. I wanted to show you just a couple things as far as TMAS is that all the data that is in TMAS, whether it's non-motorized or motorized, is open to all users. So a great reason to send data into TMAS and be part of having data sent to Federal Highways is that you can share your data with other agencies. And so it's a great way to share data in a common format and a common quality control results. You can only upload data and delete data from your own agency, so you don't have to worry about another agency deleting your data. So that's something that is safeguarded. And one thing that we really take seriously here at Federal Highways is that it's your data. It's really not our data. We're just keepers of your information and use it for federal purposes. And so once you send in the data, we keep it in the format that you send it to us in. We don't summarize it, and because we find a lot of value in what is sent to us in its raw form. And then all the data is available for reporting and exported to all users. So you can share data and do reports on data from other agencies. And we find that that's a very handy thing to have happen between different state DOTs and organizations who are sending this information. And you can even set up the QC on a site-by-site basis, because we know that there's things that are quite unique with one particular roadway or path that would be very unique quality control that some national value wouldn't work for. So you don't have to, but you are more than welcome to set up unique quality control. And I'm going to demo that real quick on how to do that and inside the software, so you'll be able to see that in just a minute. And then all data sent to Federal Highways requires 2 approvals. It requires the local agency to say this represents what really took part on the road, and we want to send it to Federal Highways as an official record of this roadway and or path. And then also FHWA needs to approve it. So Krista, I'm ready to share my screen. If somebody could send me that invite for that, that'd be great. And if there's any questions, I've only got a few minutes here to go over TMAS, and what I'm going to do is send just an open invitation. Anybody who wants me to give one-on-one training on how to use it, if maybe you're putting data in the TMG format, which is you should be following the 2016 TMG format for non-motorized. Please, feel free to email to me, just like what Scott has done in sending us data, and we'd be happy to check the data for the proper format and what's being what's being sent to us. I need feedback from Krista or somebody that you could see my TMAS test monitoring screen.
We can't see it yet, at least I can't, and I'm not able to so I think Maya is taking care of this. Great.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, is it being cut off part of it?
I can see it.
The bottom is being cut off just a little bit.
Okay, so I'll bring that down. Thank you. Thanks, Nathan. Is that good?
That's good.
Yeah, yeah, I'll roll down. So when you log in the TMAS, it requires authorization from what we call the User Profile Access Control System, or UPACS, and we are more than willing to give access for anybody in the United States who wants to send us data. That includes universities who may be collecting data as part of a system. If you're a local agency, if you're a MPO, if you're a state, it doesn't make a difference where we get the data from. If you are the keeper of non-motorized data and want to send it to Federal Highways, we would more than welcome it, because we know that there's, especially the non-motorized data collection component of the United States, that there's just a huge other realm other than state DOTs that are collecting this information. So when one logs in, the first screen you see is the home screen. If you're ever into any of the reports, let's say you go into tools and you're into export and you get confused where you are, you can always click on home in the upper left-hand corner to always get back to it. So it's real simple. We've tried to make it rather simple to bring in data. 4 or 5 clicks to bring it in, and 4 or 5 more clicks to approve it, and you're done. I mean, we've tried to keep it as simple as possible. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it's like to upload data. So we have a non-motorized component. You need to bring in the station data. The station data tells us where it is. It's sort of like your driver's license. And you need to bring that in and have that approved, and then you can bring in your count data against it. Okay, because we have to be able to geolocate where the site is, the number of lanes, or you know, its orientation with a roadway and aspects of it first. But if you're going to upload information, the first time you log in is going to be a little different in uploading data, in that we're going to ask you your organization. But once you've selected that, and then it will have that tagged with when you log in. Your state will automatically be populated based upon where you're from. So if we just pick a state, I'm going to pick Delaware because Scott may be sending in data from Delaware because of where he's located. And then the organizations, based upon what state that is, we would populate that. So if I had this set to, let's say, California, we've already pre-populated it with many of the organizations that we're aware of that exist in each state. But if yours is not there, you can add your own organization, and then we can go through the approval process of having that be an organization that is allowed to send data into Federal Highways. And literally, you know, once you click on an organization, you can hit browse, go pick a file, wherever it is, and we don't care what the file name is. You can call it whatever you want. You can send in zipped files or unzipped files. It doesn't make a difference to us. And you hit open, and then you hit upload. It's literally 3 or 4 clicks, and you're done. And you've now sent it. And then once we'll grab a copy of that, we'll start immediately processing it, and then we'll send you an email that says, hey, your data is ready for review. And once you have that ready for review, you can come back in the TMAS, you go to review. And I'm on a test server, so I'm not on the production server. As you see in the middle, in beige, it says test. So this is not production. So you don't have to worry about anything that I'm going to be doing here that I'm going to mess something up. But if you came in here, and I'm going to look at this one here from Jeremy. Now we're testing data that has failed and data that has passed, both, because we want to make sure that things that are the incorrect format, we're properly quality controlling it, and information that is properly formatted, we're also checking that for all the QC checks. In this case, this data came in as 100% valid, 48 records, but there's a multiple step process. So first, we're within the batch, we look to see if there's duplicates, and we warn you about that, and we have you resolve those. Then we look, hey, have you uploaded this data maybe more than once to Federal Highways? And we warn you about that. That's step 2. And then step 3 is actually reviewing the batch, and you can actually roll down in here, and for any one of the sites, you can actually hyperlink. The underline is hyperlink, and you can actually look at the results. And if you wanted to export those results, I could click on the plus symbol, I could click on this and click on this, or I could click on both by using this button here, and then I hit export. And literally it's going to open it up into a spreadsheet, and then I can actually look at the detailed parsed information. It just popped open on the other screen, and then you can take a look at what it looks like. Here's the actual raw record with how it was sent in, and then here's a code, and you may say to yourself, well, you know, this isn't very intuitive. M303, that doesn't mean nothing, right? Well, we actually have a list that's built in the TMAS that tells you what each one of these codes are. And so we have fatal codes that are code 100s series, 200 series is criticals, 300s are cautions, and then 400 are warnings. So we actually have organized it so that way it follows a logical sequence of what's going on with the QC quality control results. And then you can actually look at the data too if you wanted to look at that. At any time during your process, if you don't like the results, if you're not comfortable with this data coming in, you can roll down to the very bottom and hit abort batch. And it's like it wiped it out and like we never even saw it. So that's perfectly fine. Anytime you're bringing a batch and you're not comfortable with the QC results, you don't like what's happening, that's perfectly fine. And then one would hit next step and go to submit the batch, and then Federal Highways is step 5. That's we would approve it. That's pretty much as simple as it is. It's literally 4 or 5 clicks to get it in, 4 or 5 clicks to review it, and then you're done. Now, the beautiful part about once your data is in, there's going to be reports. As you can already see here up under reports, we have different volume reports for motorized. We're going to have a very similar report just like this for non-motorized, and we'll have others. If you have a report that you run on your own non-motorized data that you like a lot, let us know. We are very open to writing whatever reports are best suited to meet the needs of the non-motorized world. An important feature about TMAS is you don't have to know what data is there if you're going to do a report or if you're going to export the data. You just have to know what you want. Okay, so it's completely dynamic when you go do a filter and looking at the data. So we're going to pick, let's say, like 2016. I'll pick just a month in the middle here. And again, I'm going to try and pick a different state. We'll pick oh, I don't know. Let's try Delaware here. Do they have any data? I don't know. And this is motorized, okay? So we'll have non-motorized the same way we're going to have. And if you wanted to do drill down, you can drill down into it, and then you can hit view, and then you can view the report. Remember, reports are open to all data. So you can run reports on your data, or maybe another agency that's near you or a county that may have sent in data. You're more than happy to send in that data to us. And you'll have a header, and then you'll have the data itself, okay? So, and Krista, please stop me at any time to make sure I have plenty of time for a couple questions, okay?
You're doing fine.
All right, so the next is I wanted to go through just a couple of features here that are involved with processing the data. Remember, I said earlier, you can set up unique quality control checks for each site. Okay, and there's another slide that Chris is going to bring up as soon as I'm done with this demo, so we'll actually list all the quality control checks that we're using here at Federal Highways. But if I came in here to stations and I go down to non-motorized count, okay, I can go in here. Now your state and agency will be pre-populated because you can't change the quality control checks for some other agency. You only change it for your own. So I'll just go in here to like Alabama. And it dynamically lists what is already here. And we've been doing quality control modifications to Alabama just as a test to make sure that the quality control check changes work properly. But you go in here to generate. It'll dynamically put a list of all your sites that are in here. These are just fictitious sites, so Alabama or any agency, don't worry about what's in here. And then in here, you can go in and modify whatever QC value you want. But when you mouse over it, it'll tell you what range of values you can change. And if anybody wants to know, what each one of these quality control checks are, I'd be happy to go through it with you on an individual basis and show you what those are. But we've come up with these here at Federal Highways and had these went over by others in the industry. And we think these are going to work pretty good for the initial cut of quality control checks to run. All of the data that comes in will run by the same quality control checks. And so it'll be in a consistent quality controlled manner. That's really important to us here at Federal Highways. If you modified them, then you could save it and then close it. I'm not going to change it because I don't want to mess with somebody else's testing. But that's it for generating it. And then once it's in here, you could review it and then approve that and then send it to Federal Highways for approval. You can also delete data. So let's say you upload information and you're doing a monthly summary or quarterly summary, and you say, hey, there's 2 hours during that time period, or pop it out in some kind of report or some kind of way that you're looking at the information, and you want to delete it. So you can delete any of the data that's inside the system, and you just hit generate. And this is very similar to exporting the data. So I could come in here and I could delete the station data or the count data. And once I come in here and I select, I know there's Alabama data, so that's why I'm picking on them. Now, as soon as I picked Alabama, now it told me down here there's 2,147 count records that are uploaded here for Alabama. And as I pick, well, it's going to be the same here because this is the year, and because I have this. But once I select the station, it's going to limit this. Now it's only 28. So as you go down and you select your information, it puts down what you have going on as far as the influence of what you might be deleting. Deletion of the data requires both the person who is requesting the delete and Federal Highways approval. So you don't have to worry about an employee going rogue and deleting all your data before they leave. If we see something like that going on, we're going to call the agency and say, hey, are you sure you want to delete all of this data? And then you want to say, delete, and you put that in there, delete. And then, oops, I got to spell it right. And then you hit add request, and that's it, and you're done, and you can delete data. If one wants to export any information, just like with reports, exporting the data, you can export any data in the system. So you can export your own data or other people's data. Very similar to what we just went through with deletion. You're going to select the data type that you want to export, and you're going to select the agency. So I'm going to maybe select station, and I'll come down here and hit Colorado. And we'll pick a year. And then with station data, we're going to have a whole year's worth of the information. If I want to put everything in one file, I just leave this top button. But let's say I just want one or two sites. So let's say it's way down the list, and I want to export this Z site. And I pop that over there, and I can export that one. Now, as soon as I put it over here, it removes it from this list over on the left. And let's say that's all I want to do. You can export it in the TMG format or CSV. It's either one is available. Hit save and close, and then it's going to export that information for you. And there's also, remember I said the codes. I said, well, N301 or N303 or N310, what do those things mean? Well, there's a whole list of validation codes. And these are the ones for motorized, and we're going to populate it with a non-motorized once we finalize things. But all the codes are listed here, and we'll have all the N codes and all the L codes for the station and count data for non-motorized listed in here. So you can actually use this list to know what those codes mean to help you with troubleshooting. And I think that's about it I want to do for a demo. I did want to spend just a minute going over the slide. So I think what I'd like to do is unshare my screen. Do I have to give you control back, or can you? I think
I can take control back.
Great.
So let me get to the correct slide there. Is that the QC slide?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Krista. So these are all the quality control checks that we are utilizing in TMAS right now that will be rolling out for non-motorized. And if you want information about any of these, I'd be happy to go over them in great detail. But we are utilizing these. A number of these are new that we haven't had in motorized before. So we don't do a 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. comparison in motorized. We don't do a multiple identical counts. We don't do a high count, hourly count check, and a total minimum or maximum for the day. We don't do any of those checks in motorized. So there are some different checks that we're doing in non-motorized that we think would be highly useful to our customers and to the people who are going to be sending in data. If you have a quality control check that you've utilized, and even if it's something that you've made up on your own, that you've come up with that really works well for checking the data, let us know. We have full control over the software and can add quality control checks as needed. We want to be careful to add those that are necessary to make sure the data is good quality. And but we'd be happy to consider anybody's quality control checks, because we know there's a lot of new territory being covered with non-motorized, with quality control checks and counting of the data in the TMG format. And I think that covers my time pretty well.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very interesting, Stephen, and great to see the website in action and how to upload data. So now we have a little time for some questions and answers, comments. If you've put anything in the chat pad, now is the time for us to start asking those. I think, Nathan, you might have some for us.
Yes, one just came in from Drew Gatlin. Is the system open, or excuse me, is the system only open to data contributors? Say, for example, we're university researchers who don't collect count data. Can we gain access to TMAS and run reports even though we aren't users? Are there plans to incorporate geospatial filters in the station selection tool? If we aren't familiar with the station names, is there a way to select all stations within a radius of a given latitude, longitude, for example?
All right, so I'll answer the first. I'll do them in order. So the first question is, can people who aren't sending in data get the information out? Currently, there's no function to do that. We do expect in version 3.0, which is the next version of TMAS, for us to have a data portal where all of the data, or if not all, most of the data, including non-motorized, would be available in a public portal. That being said, if you need data and or need reports, let us know, and we will try and work at getting those reports and or data to you, and making sure that the agency of which you are requesting the data from, they can have. The other one, geospatial. Currently, TMAS is not geospatially enabled, but version 3 will be geospatially enabled. We just mapped all of the 6,000 plus volume sites and class and WIM sites in the United States geospatially, and we expect to use the lat long data from non-motorized to also do that. And we're also working on a national bicycle network for the United States that will also, then we'll be able to have a map that we can place at least bicycle counts on. So that is coming in the future, but is not part of TMAS right now. Great questions. So, yeah, are there any others?
Yes, a few more actually. From Daniel Snyder, how are the TMAS QC checks developed and determined? Can the QC checks be performed prior to uploading the data to TMAS?
It's perfectly fine. A lot of people, so they were developed by Federal Highway staff and research that we had done on prior counts that we'd received, and also looking at what research has been done in regard to quality control checks. When we looked at data that we'd had from a selected group of people, and we saw some of the things that had happened with it, we tried to come up with some of the best checks. We know that these checks are not the end all. There's probably a lot better checks to use, and this is just the first cut at it. So one thing that would be really helpful is, let's say you run your data through, and let's say the fourth bullet, which is total daily count minimum, is causing you issues. You can modify that QC so that way more of the data comes through, because TMAS QC checks are meant to be a big filter. And what we want to do is we want to flag that data that's unusual, that would cause concern with somebody utilizing it for that representative travel way. And what we don't want to do is flag data that is good data that just happens to be an anomaly because of maybe some special event, some special weather pattern. You know, there's lots of reasons why data looks very unusual, but is perfectly representative of what really took place there. So it's perfectly fine to modify the QC so that data comes through and is not flagged. That being said, even if it's flagged, even if it blows for all of these quality control checks, we will still keep it if it's the right format. Because sometimes that really weird data is the data that some researchers want, like Hurricane Sandy and Super Bowls and these different travel patterns that happen around the country. People want that information, and we supply it to them. So I think I answered the question. Was there a two-part to that?
Well, no, that was all for that question. And I think we have time for one more.
Okay.
And it's, again, from Daniel Snyder, and he's asking, are the reports only table-based, or are charts an option as well?
We have some charts available. We have not envisioned doing any for non-motorized yet, but if you have a chart, Daniel, that you want us to think would be quite useful for us to code, let us know, and we will be happy to try and include that. Right now, we were just going to be doing chart-based because it's the quickest with getting it done, because we really wanted to have this software done about 6 months ago, and we've had difficulty getting the sub-hour processing to work properly. So we're excited to roll this out as soon as possible. So our initial thought was to add just tables and add graphic capability to it. And definitely in version 3, we will have graphs available, because we realize that's the great way of looking at information. There are a few graphs available of TMAS data in the weight data reporting. So, all right, thanks.
Okay, Thank you so much, Stephen. We really appreciate it, and we will have more time for questions later, but we want to go to Scott next. So Scott Brady, are you ready? Here are your slides if you want those now, or if you want to just talk to us for a while.
Ready, willing, and roaring, ready to go. Okay,
Great.
So thank you. Next slide. And now Stephen has talked a bit about the TMAS system. And now that we've got you all excited because you all want to get in there and put your data in there and also use the data that's in there in order to start some very valuable research, the horizon for research in this area is exciting. It's very exciting. Now I'm going to come along and be the bad guy and say that it is not the easiest process to get approved for access to these databases. That said, and I'll show you as we flip through some of the forms. That said, however, don't be discouraged. It's certainly easier than doing your taxes, and it is worthwhile once you muddle through it. But so we basically, there are two steps to this process of gaining access to TMAS. The first is a security clearance called an ORC, which gives you federal security clearance. And then secondly, UPACS itself, you have to register. You have to do one before you can do the other. So you can see those acronyms that's spelled out here on the screen. Next. Okay, so we've given you the link here, the URL to go to. And Krista, if you just want to next, you can see, keep going next. You can see quite a bit. Okay, once you get done with this, then that's good for now, Krista. Once you get done with this, then what you have to do is go photocopy your driver's license or other government issued ID, photocopy a utility statement or credit card statement, I'd use utility, with your name and address showing that they match, and then finally run this previous page of this display off to a notary public and have them notarize that it's your signature. Get all of that done, you have to send it certified mail to ORCS in Virginia, and they will issue you a temporary ID and password to get into the system. Okay, so you go into the system, change your password right away, and you think, okay, we're done. No, that's the first half. Now you have the second half to do. And so we're now at UPACS. So Krista, let's do that again. Here we go. And go ahead, just keep going. This shows you where to go to sign in, and again, all the forms that you're going to fill out all over again. Okay, so, and all of this will be included in the materials that are available with the webinar. The one thing I want to say is, like I said, it is very worthwhile, but there is one thing that you want to be very careful of, and I know this is something that we run into here being a public agency, an MPO, and it's particularly at the university level, you're going to run into it. There's the temptation often to just go through the pain once, set up one account, and then people run it off, they post it on the wall, and everybody uses the same account. ORCS and UPACS are very, very specific in that each individual user must have their own unique account. If you attempt to use an account that is someone else's or such, and they find out, they will cancel your registration. So just be careful not to violate that. So we've basically shown you, okay, yes, this is difficult. It's not impossible to get through it. And once you're through it, yay! Now you have the fun time. Now you get to play with the data. Now you get to upload data, and from then on, it's easy cruising. So I believe. I haven't gotten that far yet, but So that's the second thing I wanted to talk about. Finally, I have a guest here with me today in my office, a very talented young woman, Katie Lample. She's operating as an intern, and Stephen will tell you it's been very trying preparing our bike data for TMAS at first, several years of trying, and I'm told I'm very trying. And part of it was that as you get old, like I am, it's time for me to go. You find a way that works, and you attempt to try to keep pushing that way and improving on that way, and you're not as willing as a younger person to look at other ways that may work. And so we end up, unfortunately, it's a very bad trap to get into. And one of the things that this whole process and having Katie come in at the almost a year ago now and start wrestling with this data was to have a fresh perspective and have somebody teach me all over again that just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad. And I can learn some interesting things from a different way, a different viewpoint, and apply those to, even if I'm going to stay with my way of doing things, apply some of those to my way of doing things and end up with a better product. And in the end, that's what we're all after, is have a better product. So Katie's here. If any of you have any questions about the coding, we have so far submitted, I believe it's over 3,000 station records and over 10,000 data records through TMAS. We're getting ready to submit our 2015s right now, which is a very hefty file. And so she's pretty much seen many, many things. She's seen it and can answer any questions you might have. In that, though, there is one document that should be your guide to filling out the fields, and that document was Federal Highways was very smart in bringing Kittleson and Associates on board, writing a coding guide to the TMG format for non-motorized modes. And that guide has been an essential part of our training here and has been very valuable. We have actually gone back to Krista and us on the phone. We've opened it at each of our ends and used that to answer questions we had. So that's one other thing I would say is go online, get a copy of that, save it to your computer, because you're going to be referring to that a lot. But other than that, I don't think there's anything else I can talk about that's general. It would just get very specific from here on out.
Well, great. That's wonderful, Scott. We really appreciate it, and I think that gives us plenty of time for Q&A. But before we get to our Q&A, we have a few poll questions. So I'm going to go to Nathan for a few more poll questions.
Great, thanks, Krista. The next question is, how do you plan to share your agency's bike ped count data in the short term? Give it a few more seconds for people to... Oh, it was closed. Sorry about that. Here, I'll share the results though. With about 32% voting, we have 0% actually for TMAS, 21% for the bike ped portal, 36% for a state level repository, 14% for a regional repository, and 29% for other. Okay. Have another question. And this one is, how are your bike ped count data stored? Through some sort of paper filing system, computerized with a non-tabular, tabular, or spatial database, or through a vendor or third-party system? We'll give everyone here a few more seconds to answer. Okay, I'll close the poll and share the results here. All right, so 11% of people have some sort of paper files or non-tabular computerized. Most everyone has it in some sort of tabular system such as Excel. Others have it in some sort of vendor and third-party system. And then some also actually have it in a GIS or interactive map. Great. And then the last question is, what tools do you use for quality checking your data? You can select all that apply here. Some sort of vendor software, software unique to your agency, manual checking on your own, no quality checking, or other. Give it a few more seconds. All right, I'll close the poll now and share these results. Okay. So the majority of people are using some sort of manual checking system. That's great. Others, about 24%, don't have any sort of quality checking or some other type of quality checking. Doesn't seem like unique software to an agency is all that popular, but it also does seem like vendor software is used quite often. Great. Hide that last poll there.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So great to hear so many people are doing quality checking. And now we have time for questions. So Nathan, do you have any questions that we want to ask now?
Yes, then there's actually a few more that are left over from Stephen's portion, so I'll get to go ahead and start with those. Okay, this one is from Bonnie Sherman. Related to what Daniel had been asking earlier is what type of information will be included in the reports? Is it simply raw data, or does it include some sort of summarization tools?
Yeah, great question. We plan on having both. So there'll be summaries by time increment, things that are like day of week, which would show travel patterns as they vary by day of week. You'll be able to do a report on whether it's bike, ped, or both, and have independent reports on those depending on what data source that you're searching on, and so it's a variety of different methods, but we. If I had more time, and I'd be happy to demo TMAS for anybody who wants to see it, there's a whole plethora of reports. We've got over 20 reports inside TMAS right now, and we plan on doubling that number with version 3.0 with a whole bunch more, including non-motorized. Something I didn't mention, and Scott didn't either, so I just want to make sure this is clear. When people upload data to TMAS, it needs to be 1 month. Well, it doesn't have to be a month, but you should not span more than 1 month, and it needs to be only one data type. So you can't upload station and volume non-motorized at the same time. You have to upload station or volume, not both at the same time in one batch. So just want to make sure that's clear. And Scott's right. I'm not going to sugarcoat getting an ORC approval and or UPACs. This is quite painful, and it's sort of like signing over your firstborn, to some other agency. It feels like that at some time. If anybody wants to get access and you find difficulty and you're confused about it, let us know. We've helped numerous people. We have over 250 users inside TMAS right now, and we expect that number probably to double the next year with non-motorized and additional people who are sending in class and weight data utilizing TMAS. So I'd be happy to help anybody through that process. And ORC is not something Federal Highways volunteered for. It was required by the White House about 15 years ago to have that authentication. But what's amazing is we actually uncovered somebody who was not who they said they were through this process. So it did keep somebody from getting in the TMAS who was not who they claimed they were. So it did work in one case that I'm aware of. So
great. All right, we have another question here from Jordan Whistler. Any thoughts on how a state DOT should think about establishing a data submission process for the state, i.e. local to state to federal, or local to federal and state to federal, etc.
Right.
How are duplicate records handled?
Yeah, so there's an ownership process that we built in the TMAS. It's brand new to version 2.8, and the local agency will own that data, and they will control it. And if there's duplicity in what is sent in, the local agency owns that data until the state and the local agency have an agreement where the state would take over control of those sites, and then they would control it. Part of our process of if we had data that came in from two different agencies with the same location, that's part of that process of when I showed within the batch are there duplicates and are there batches in the national database. When we do that second check, national database, it would uncover, hey, this data was already uploaded before maybe this time period and or this month, and what do you want to do? And it might be that you want to override it. There might be reasons why the existing data is information that you would want to overwrite with this new data, or maybe since it's already there, you just skip that site and go on to the others. So we do that check automatically, and I think I answered what they had in the question. Did I miss anything, Nathan?
I think there was a last portion that was just asking how were duplicate records handled.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's handled through the input process when we do the checks. There's another part at the beginning. That's right. How should the data be sent in? Should it be the local or through the state? It's really up to how the local agency has a working agreement with either their, like if it's a county working through an MPO, or it's a local city working through their MPO, if they're within the MPO, or the MPO working with the state. However the working arrangement exists, we're happy to receive the data directly from a local agency, because we realize, especially in the non-motorized, that there's a lot of counts where, non-motorized that is, that there might not be a state counting program for non-motorized, and we would welcome having that data in TMAS so it could be part of a larger national analysis. So it's perfectly fine for a local agency to send in that data, and they don't need the approval of the state to send it to us. It's just a matter of getting access rights and then just start uploading their information. And we recommend and we found this from the non-motorized world, doing it on a monthly basis is about the longest time span you'd want to go, because if you do it quarterly or yearly, as some people may do processing, what happens is you get so far away from that month, you don't realize that there's attributes of what took place, kind of the metadata behind the data, that you don't realize, oh, golly, there was construction there, or there was some special event, or there was a weather, event that took place that would preclude you utilizing or wanting others to utilize that data. So it's important that you try and upload the data as soon as you get it after the close of the month, and then send it in. And you can send in portable counts or from permanent sites. It doesn't have to be, as we normally have in TMAS, permanent data. It can be any type, from short-term counts, just a couple hours. It doesn't even have to be a complete day. So.
Great. One last question here from Madeline Burkhart. It'd be interesting to understand counts before and after a facility has been added, upgraded, such as separated, buffered bike lane or sidewalk. Will there be a way to determine what type of facility is located at the count site?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's what Scott, and thank you, Scott, for mentioning that. That was part of the research that Gittell Associates did with the guide of how to collect information in the traffic boundary guide format. It goes through all kinds of scenarios of the ways of doing counts. So there, you could have counts from sidewalks, even an escalator, or a count from maybe a bridge, or like an overhead bridge where pedestrians walk. You can have counts, in the crosswalk or mid-block, or we've covered all kinds of scenarios, because we know that there's these counts that are being done, and we want to record those and have them properly geolocated to where they are and what they represent. And that brings a lot of value, because sometimes they're part of turn and movement counts. You do pedestrian studies of people, how many cross at different time intervals during the day, like counts at roundabouts. There's all kinds of scenarios, and that's why, when Scott mentioned that document, he's exactly right. It's been very helpful to the industry to make sure that the counts are properly coded and they represent what really took place there. So, and a little discouraging that nobody's going to send in data to TMAS, but I have to let those who are on here, the 50+ people who have been on here, that there's a lot of value to sending your data into federal highways. We are not going to use it to punish any organization. It'll just enhance what you already have. You're already using it for your local uses. Why not make it part of a national program where other people can utilize it? There are people, both international and national, who utilize the TMAS data set. It's multiple terabytes of data that are there. We're really looking forward to receiving non-motorized data. So if anybody needs help getting it in the TMG format, as we've helped you, I mean, Scott, I don't know how many times you sent it to us, but we're very diligent in checking it every time you sent it to us, and it was fine. We don't mind doing that because we know it's not something that just rolls off the tongue. The TMG format in 2016. So, we'll help you through it. It's something that, and we learn during the process when we're working with you as a partner. We at Federal Highways learn also how best to develop TMAS and maybe future TMG formats. So we will help you. We routinely help states. I'm on the phone probably 3 or 4 times a week helping different agencies with TMG formatted data. It's a regular part of my job, and I love doing it. So
great. And actually, the question.
I want to remind people that they can also raise their hands if they want to talk, and we can give them the phone. Go ahead, Nathan.
Okay. There's actually another question that just came in from Daniel Snyder. Is FHWA training state DOTs on the new field of non-motorized data collection, increasing their capacity to submit files complying with the TMG format? And the same question applies for training the MPO staff.
Yes, there's a course people can attend. It's called the Traffic Monitoring Guide course. The National Highway Institute teaches it, and 2 of the sessions that are in there, one is on the formats of it, and another one goes over the whole Chapter 4 process of how to set up a accounting program. And there's a lot of state DOTs who are standing up non-motorized accounting programs, and they have taken the course. We've taught it all over the United States, and if any agency would like to attend the course, maybe host it, we would be happy to help you out with doing that. So yes, the state agencies are aware of it. I got to admit though that some states are real keen to starting up and having non-motorized counts, and others are not. So it's about a 50-50 that we've seen. It's not always a welcome component of what's part of a DOT counting program. But I think that's going to change over time because, when you look at counting programs, there's unique things with non-motorized, but there's a big value that has come through the 50+ years of traffic counts in the United States that I think can help the non-motorized people with traffic counts and how to develop factors for annualizing the information and how to set up a permanent and portable count program to best annualize for hour of day, day of week, month of year, and year to year factoring that needs to be done for properly reporting the data so it's comparable between counts. So there's a lot of things that can be learned and shared.
Great, thank you, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be sure to include any links that were mentioned throughout this session and the follow-up the follow-up email to all of the attendees here. And actually, that's all of the questions that are in the question pod right now. But I do have a question for you, Scott. Throughout the process that you all went through, what was one of the more, I guess you could say, challenging aspects whenever you were reviewing the data? What maybe sticks out to you in terms of what took the most in terms of processing?
Do you want to handle that one, Katie? I'd say there were several, though. It seemed that every time that we came across something that was 180 degrees different in its approach than how we had approached it, it created tension. Mm-hmm. And that tension had to be given time, a few days to abate before we could approach it with fresh eyes. But there were situations that did come up, and I'm like, what were they thinking? And then, you know, a week later, it made perfect sense. That's why I say we got to be careful when we go into these things, not so quick to write things off, but to understand that, hey, there must be a reason why they did this, and to understand that makes all of our work better.
I would also add that we started with data coming from 2010 and have been working our way forward. So I would just also stress what Stephen said, that submitting data after a month, if you can, would be much easier because we've had to go back through a lot of data and a lot of notes to organize things. Whereas moving forward, once we get caught up to 2017 and 2018, it would be much easier to submit the data shortly after taking the counts.
Hey, Nathan.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Stephen. I want to mention two things, and thanks for mentioning that from DVRPC. I forgot to mention this, so I'm glad we're having this conversation. In TMAS, you can go up to 4 years back and load the data. Any agency that has access rights can go up to 4 years back. That being said, we are now loading through our own process. The headquarters staff can go up to any year back. So if you have a historical data set and you're starting to churn out the data in the TMG format, and let's say it's from 2010, we would welcome it here, and we will gladly load it in TMAS. We can go back to any year. I mean, I can go back to the 1950s if you had data back that far. No problem at all for me to upload it. The other thing is with NatMac, and thanks for Krista for putting this on the screen. There's a whole day dedicated to non-motorized. It's on Tuesday. All day long will be sessions on non-motorized, and they're not going to overlap with any other session. So you can see everything to do with non-motorized that we have in NatMac. We received over 120 abstracts in NatMac, and so there's 4 concurrent sessions, but non-motorized will have its own individual track for it. Actually spanned more than one day because Scott Brady actually slotted those. So thanks for Scott's work on that.
Oh, pish posh.
Great.
Good.
Well, that's all of the questions that are in the question pod.
Anybody else have a last question you want to have answered, either in the question pod, or you can raise your hand and we'll give you the mic?
Yeah, I assumed it was, I didn't say it, but TMAS is free. There's no cost involved other than the pain of going through ORC and UPACs. there's no cost to it, yeah. And there's no cost to get out all these other counts either. So, and if anybody is an agency that they aren't sending in data, let us know. We'll see what we can do with getting data to you. We'd be happy to share the data that's in TMAS with other agencies that need it for research. Like Greg Lindsay is a big user of data, and I know he's done a lot of research on non-motorized from Minnesota.
Great man.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. Any last questions, Nathan, that you're seeing?
There are none on the screen.
Okay. Well, in that case, we will wrap up. Thank you all for participating. We are so grateful for our panelists today, Stephen Jesberger from FHWA and Scott Brady and Katie from DVRPC. And our next conversation with colleagues is going to be on automated video image processing. So that'll be coming up, I believe, Tuesday, April 24th. Stay tuned. I also want to thank Mai Liu and Nathan Hicks, who've been so helpful today, getting us the questions and making sure our technical problems are answered. So thank you. And of course, we want to remind you, as Stephen was mentioning, that NatMec, which is the National Travel Monitoring Exposition and Conference, will be held in Irvine, California in June this year. It's an every other year thing, so kind of another reason this is an important year for bike ped count data. So I hope you can make it, and we will see you there. And if you have any other questions, you can respond to the email. We'll make sure that the questions get to Stephen or Scott. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.